Extravagant anniversary dinner only to be told, sorry, you're not on the list. Leave. Then they rang security and told them, throw this beggar out. So I turned away, quietly canceled every payment, party, and trip. $62,000 in total. Minutes later, my phone blew up with 36 missed calls, and someone came knocking at my door. I went to my parents. Have you ever been completely blindsided by betrayal? Like a punch to the gut you never saw coming? Because just last month Mackenzie Morgan, found myself standing at my parents' 40th anniversary party, a party I'd shelled out $18,000 for, only to hear my own father point at me and hiss to security, "Get this beggar out of here." Yeah, you heard that right. Beggar. It broke me, but it also changed everything. And if you've ever felt like your family's personal ATM, trust me, you're going to want to hear how I finally broke free. Growing up, I was the quiet middle child, constantly overshadowed. My older sister, Heather, was the golden child, blonde, beautiful, a cheerleader, always celebrated with parties and expensive gifts. Then there was Eric, the spoiled baby brother, the only boy who could do no wrong, despite constantly getting into trouble. And me? I was just Mackenzie, the studious, responsible one, always desperate for a sliver of the approval that came so effortlessly to them. When I brought home straight A's, my mother would simply say, "That's expected of you, Mackenzie." No praise, no celebration. Just expectation. When I won the state math competition in high school, my father barely nodded before asking if I could tutor Eric in algebra since I was so good at it. It became clear very early on, I had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. This pattern only intensified as we got older. My parents footed the bill for Heather's private university education, where she barely scraped by with C's. Me? I earned a partial scholarship to State University and worked 2 jobs just to cover the rest. And when I graduated with honors in finance, proud as punch, not a single family member showed up. Why? Because Eric needed help moving into his new apartment. The gut punch was real, even then. After college, I started at the bottom of a financial advisory firm, grinding out 70-hour weeks. I was relentless. Within 5 years, I'd built a client base strong enough to open my own practice. Specializing in tech industry investments in Seattle's booming market paid off big. By 30, I was making more money than I had ever dreamed. And that's exactly when the calls started coming in more frequently. "Mackenzie, your father and I are struggling with the mortgage since he cut back his hours," my mother would say, her voice dripping with that specific tone, a saccharine mix of entitlement and manufactured desperation. It started as "just this month," then it was 6 months, then a year. Soon, I was paying their entire mortgage. Then Eric needed seed money for his first business venture, a food truck he abandoned after 3 months. Then his second, an app that never made it past concept. Then his third, a coffee shop he lost interest in the moment the novelty wore off. And Heather? Her wedding was a financial nightmare. As maid of honor, I was expected to pay for a bachelorette party in Vegas for 8 women. When I dared to mention my budget, my mother pulled me aside, her voice dropping to a menacing whisper, "Your sister only gets married once. Do you want to ruin her special day because you're being selfish with your money?" The emotional blackmail was relentless. The pattern was unmistakable. I was excluded from family gatherings unless they needed my checkbook. Last Christmas, I found out they'd all gone to Aspen for a ski trip when they posted photos on social media. My heart sank. When I called my mother to ask why I wasn't invited, she shrugged it off. "Oh, we didn't think you'd be interested. You're always working." Yet, just 3 weeks later, Eric called because his car was about to be repossessed. I paid off the $12,000 loan. It was a vicious cycle. 6 months before their 40th anniversary, the planning began. My mother called, her voice unusually warm and friendly. "Mackenzie, dear, your father and I are celebrating our 40th this year. We want a special celebration at Les Maisons." My stomach dropped. Les Maisons was the most expensive restaurant in Seattle, famous for private events and celebrity clientele. I looked it up later, and the rental alone would be thousands. "That sounds wonderful, Mom," I said, trying to genuinely feel happy about being included. "We'll need your help with the deposit," she continued, that familiar expectant tone creeping in. "It's $18,000 for the private dining room and initial catering." I swallowed hard. That was a significant sum, even for me. But I wanted to be part of this family milestone, to believe this time would be different. "Of course, I can help with that." "Perfect. I'll have the event planner call you for the credit card details. We're thinking about 60 guests." 60 guests? That's quite a gathering. "Who all is coming?" I asked, already calculating the final bill would likely exceed $50,000. "Oh, just family and close friends," my mother replied vaguely. "We'll send you the details later." The details never came. Each time I asked about the event, my questions were deflected. "Don't worry about it, Mackenzie. Just focus on your work. We know how busy you are." 2 weeks before the event, I called Heather to ask what I should wear. "Oh," Heather sounded genuinely surprised. "Are you coming? I thought you'd be too busy." A cold dread began to trickle down my spine. "Of course, I'm coming." "I paid the deposit," I said, confusion evident in my voice. "Right. Well, it's formal. Black tie." She quickly changed the subject. I spent the next week finding the perfect dress, a classic black Valentino that cost more than most people's monthly rent. I bought a set of matching Patek Philippe watches for my parents, knowing my father had always admired the brand, but claimed it was too extravagant. The gift cost $5,000, but I wanted to see their faces when they opened it. The event was scheduled for Saturday, April 24th. As the day approached, I felt a familiar anxiety mixed with a foolish, persistent hope. Despite all evidence to the contrary, I still harbored this desperate belief that this time would be different. This time, I would be welcomed as a daughter, not just a financial resource. How utterly, devastatingly wrong I was. April 24th arrived with perfect Seattle weather, a rare sunny spring day, clear blue skies. I spent extra time getting ready, having my hair and makeup professionally done. The stylist curled my chestnut hair into elegant waves that framed my face. My makeup was subtle but polished, highlighting my green eyes, the only feature my mother had ever genuinely complimented. The black Valentino dress fit perfectly, accentuating my figure without being flashy. I paired it with simple diamond studs and the sapphire pendant my grandmother had left me, the only family member who had ever shown me unconditional love. The gift box with the watches sat on my passenger seat, wrapped in silver paper with a blue bow. My stomach was a knot of nerves and anticipation. Les Maisons was located downtown, occupying the top floor of a historic building with breathtaking views of Elliott Bay. I validated my car and walked into the marble lobby, excitement and nervousness battling in my stomach. The elevator attendant nodded respectfully as I stepped in. "Private event for the Morgans," I told him. "Top floor, ma'am," he replied. When I reached the restaurant's entrance, a hostess in a sleek black uniform greeted me. The space behind her was transformed with elegant floral arrangements and soft lighting. I could hear the murmur of conversation and gentle classical music. "Good evening. I'm here for the Morgan anniversary celebration," I said with a smile, trying to project confidence. She glanced down at her tablet, scrolling through what I assumed was the guest list. Her brow furrowed slightly. "Your name, please?" "Mackenzie Morgan. I'm Richard and Elizabeth's daughter." She scrolled again, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, I don't see your name on our list." My smile faltered. There must be a mistake. "I'm their daughter. I actually paid the deposit for this event." The hostess gave me an apologetic look. "Let me check with the event coordinator." As she stepped away, I caught glimpses of the celebration through the partially open doors. The room was beautifully decorated with white roses and silver accents. I recognized my Uncle Thomas laughing with a glass of champagne, my cousin Rebecca taking photos near a large anniversary cake. Everyone was dressed elegantly, exactly as I had been told. The hostess returned with a woman in a tailored suit who introduced herself as the event coordinator. "Miss Morgan, I understand there's some confusion. Your name isn't on our approved guest list." "That's impossible," I insisted, my cheeks beginning to flush with embarrassment. "I'm their daughter. I paid the $18,000 deposit for this event." She nodded uncomfortably. Yes, we have a record of your payment. However, the final guest list was approved by Mr. and Mrs. Morgan personally, and you're not on it. Perhaps there was a miscommunication. People were starting to look our way. I clutched my gift tighter, trying desperately to maintain my composure. May I speak with my parents, please? I'll see if they're available, she replied, disappearing through the doors. I stood in the lobby, acutely aware of being watched by the restaurant staff. Minutes ticked by, each one an eternity. I saw more family members arrive. Heather and her husband with their 2 children, all dressed impeccably. She saw me waiting, a flicker of something in her eyes, but she quickly averted them, hurrying past without acknowledgement. Eric arrived next with his latest girlfriend. He at least had the decency to look embarrassed when he spotted me, mumbling something to his date before they were quickly ushered inside. After 15 excruciating minutes, the doors opened again. Instead of the event coordinator, my parents emerged. My mother looked stunning in a silver gown, her blonde hair perfectly styled. My father, distinguished in his tuxedo, held a crystal champagne flute. Mackenzie, my mother said, her voice low and irritated, as if I was the problem. What are you doing here? I stared at them, completely stunned. What do you mean? It's your anniversary celebration. I paid for it. My father glanced around, clearly concerned about making a scene. We appreciate the financial contribution, but this is a family-only event. The words hit me like a physical blow. I am family. I'm your daughter. You know what we mean, my mother sighed impatiently. This is for people who are actually involved in our lives. We didn't think you'd actually come. You're always working. I held out the gift box, my hand trembling slightly. I bought you something special. My mother didn't even look at it. You can send it later. This isn't a good time. Behind them, I could see curious faces watching the exchange. My Aunt Catherine looked concerned. Heather was whispering to her husband. Eric was studiously avoiding the scene. I don't understand, I said, my voice breaking slightly. I paid for this party. How can I not be welcome at it? My father's expression hardened. He set his champagne glass on a nearby table and gestured to someone behind him. A security guard in a dark suit approached. Please remove this woman, my father said coldly. She's disturbing our private event. The security guard looked uncomfortable but stepped forward. Ma'am, I'll have to ask you to leave. I couldn't believe what was happening. Dad, you can't be serious. His next words would burn in my memory forever. Get this beggar out of here. Beggar. The word echoed in my head, raw and brutal, as the security guard gently but firmly took my elbow. I'm sorry, ma'am, he murmured, clearly embarrassed. I need to escort you out. I was too shocked to resist. As I was led toward the elevator, I could feel dozens of eyes on my back. The beautiful gift box was still clutched in my hand. The last thing I saw before the doors closed was my mother returning to the party, already laughing at something someone had said, as if her middle child hadn't just been publicly humiliated and ejected. The elevator ride down was silent. The security guard avoided eye contact. When we reached the lobby, he released my arm. Your car, ma'am, he asked quietly. I can find it myself, I managed to say, my voice barely audible. I walked through the lobby on wobbly legs, aware of the curious glances from the staff and other restaurant patrons. My face burned with humiliation. The valet brought my car without comment, though I could swear I saw pity in his eyes as he handed me the keys. I placed the gift box carefully on the passenger seat, started the engine, and drove away from lame Misen, away from the family that had just made it abundantly clear that my only value to them was financial. The drive home passed in a blur. My vision tunneled as I navigated through downtown Seattle on autopilot. At one point, I nearly sideswiped a car when changing lanes, the angry honk barely registering through my shock. Beggar. The word kept replaying in my mind, my father's disgusted face accompanying it like a terrible slideshow. I somehow made it to my apartment building in Queen Anne, a modern high-rise with views of the Space Needle. I'd purchased the condo 2 years ago, a personal milestone I'd celebrated alone with a bottle of champagne. My family had never visited despite numerous invitations. In the parking garage, I turned off the engine and just sat there in silence. The carefully wrapped gift box mocked me from the passenger seat. The expensive dress suddenly felt constricting. The professional makeup, a mask. For several minutes, I just breathed, trying to process what had happened. When the first sob broke free, it startled me with its intensity. Then another came, and another, until I was gasping for air between violent cries. My carefully applied makeup streamed down my face as years of rejection crystallized into this one devastating moment. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually my phone rang. The screen showed my best friend Jordan's name. With shaking hands, I answered. "Hey, Mac, how's the fancy party? Are they treating you like the princess you are for once?" Her cheerful voice was jarring against my emotional state. "They kicked me out," I whispered, my voice raspy from crying. "What?" "I can't hear you. The connection's bad. They had security. Remove me," I said louder, a fresh sob punctuating the sentence. "Wait, what?" Jordan's shock came through clearly. "Where are you right now?" "In my car, parking garage." "Stay there. I'm coming over. 20 minutes tops." True to her word, Jordan arrived in record time. When she saw me still sitting in my car, mascara streaked down my face, she opened the passenger door, moved the gift box, and pulled me into a fierce hug. "Tell me everything," she demanded. And so I did. The words poured out between fresh bouts of tears. The guest list exclusion. My parents' cold dismissal. The security escort. The beggar comment. Jordan listened, her expression transitioning from shock to pure outrage. Those entitled, manipulative, soul-sucking vampires, she finally spat when I finished. "Mac, this is beyond dysfunctional. This is abuse." "They're my family," I said weakly, the default response I'd used to justify their behavior for years. "No," Jordan said firmly. "Family doesn't treat each other like ATMs. Family doesn't publicly humiliate each other. Family doesn't take and take and take without giving anything back." We made our way up to my apartment where Jordan helped me out of the designer dress and into comfortable clothes. She gently removed my ruined makeup while I sat numbly on the edge of my bathtub. Then she poured us both large glasses of wine and ordered delivery from my favorite Thai restaurant. "You know the worst part," I said, staring into my wine glass. "I have records of everything I've ever given them. Every loan, every gift, every bill paid. I keep meticulous financial records, it's literally my job. But I've never had the courage to add it all up." "Maybe it's time," Jordan suggested quietly. I nodded, reaching for my laptop. While we waited for the food, I opened my personal finance tracking software. I had a special category labeled Family Support that I had been faithfully documenting for years. With a few clicks, I generated a report. The total made us both gasp, $327,845.38 over the past decade. "Oh my God, Mac," Jordan whispered. "That's a house. That's multiple college educations. That's retirement savings." I scrolled through the itemized list, memories attached to each entry: Eric's failed businesses, Heather's wedding and subsequent home renovation, my parents' mortgage payments during rough patches that somehow never ended, medical bills, car payments, luxury vacations I wasn't invited to join. "And that doesn't even include tonight's deposit," I said hollowly. Something shifted inside me as I stared at the number. A quiet rage began to replace the hurt and confusion. I opened my credit card app to check recent transactions and discovered something that made my blood boil. "They're still using my card," I said in disbelief. "Look at these charges from today. Additional catering, $4,500. Premium bar package, $3,200. Anniversary cake from Celebrity Bakery, $800. "They didn't even tell me," I whispered. "They just kept charging." On a hunch, I opened Instagram. Sure enough, Heather had already posted photos from the event. One showed my parents cutting the elaborate cake I had unknowingly paid for. The caption read, "Celebrating 40 years of the perfect love story with our tight-knit family. So blessed to have parents who taught us what unconditional love truly means." I scrolled through more photos. One showed Eric presenting my parents with what appeared to be plane tickets. His caption, "Alaska cruise for the anniversary couple. Can't wait to hear about your adventures." The cruise I had booked and paid for 3 months ago, now presented as his gift. Another photo showed Heather's husband raising a toast to Richard and Elizabeth and the wonderful family vacation they're hosting for all of us in Disneyland next month. The Disneyland trip I had arranged and funded as a surprise for my niece and nephew, now being claimed by others. They're taking credit for my gifts, I said, my voice strangely calm now. They're using my money to buy themselves adoration. Jordan looked at the phone, then at me. What are you going to do? I closed the laptop and set down my wine glass. The hurt was still there, but now it was crystallizing into something harder, more resolute. I'm done being their ATM. I slept surprisingly well that night, as if my body needed to shut down and process the trauma. When I woke up the next morning, the events of the previous night came flooding back. But the overwhelming emotion had been replaced by something else, determination. I showered, made coffee, and sat at my kitchen island with my laptop. It was Sunday, so my office was closed. But I texted my assistant, Chloe, who had been with me for 5 years and knew more about my family situation than anyone except Jordan. Need your help with something personal. Can you come by my apartment around 10 o'clock? She replied immediately. Of course. Everything okay? It will be, I wrote back. While waiting for Chloe, I created a new spreadsheet. This one wasn't just a record of past transactions, but a comprehensive list of all current and future financial commitments I had made to my family. $18,000 anniversary party deposit at Lame Misen, already paid. $22,000 for Alaska cruise anniversary gift, paid, scheduled for June. $9,000 for Heather's family trip to Disney, paid, scheduled for May. $15,000 business loan to Eric, funds transferred but not yet used. 8. 000COUNTRYCLUBEMERPARENTSDUENEXTWEEK. TOTALCURENTOBLIGATIONS. Operator 8. 000 Country Club membership renewal for parents, due next week, total current obligations. Operator 62000. I stared at the number. That was more than many people made in a year, and it represented just the current commitments, not the hundreds of thousands already spent. When Chloe arrived, her eyes widened at my appearance. Despite the shower and coffee, I clearly looked rough. What happened? She asked, setting down her laptop bag. I told her everything, keeping my voice steady and factual. Chloe had witnessed many phone calls from my family over the years, always about money, always urgent. She had seen me drop everything to wire funds or make calls on their behalf. But even she was shocked by the anniversary party story. That's beyond cruel, she said when I finished. What do you need from me? I need to know my legal position on these financial commitments, I said, showing her the spreadsheet. What can I cancel? What am I legally obligated to follow through on? Chloe, efficient as always, got to work. She called a lawyer friend who specialized in family law and put him on speaker. Without using names, she outlined the situation. The deposit for the event that already occurred is gone, the lawyer advised. But reservations for future events that were made with your credit card are different. You have every right to cancel those, especially if there was no written agreement that these were gifts. And the business loan? I asked. If the money hasn't been used, and there was no formal loan agreement, you can recall those funds. It would be different if it had been clearly documented as a gift. None of it was documented, I said. That was by design. They always kept things verbal. After the call ended, Chloe looked at me. What's the plan, boss? I'm going to cancel everything, I said firmly. Every reservation. Every payment. Every future commitment. And I'm going to document exactly how much I've given them over the years. So, when they inevitably come asking for more, I have a clear record to show. They'll be furious, Chloe warned. I know, I said quietly. But I can't keep doing this. Last night made it clear that no amount of money will ever buy their love or respect. I've been trying to purchase a place in their family that they have no intention of giving me. Together, Chloe and I expanded the spreadsheet to include all historical transactions. We categorized them by family member, by year, and by type of expense. We calculated interest that would have accrued had these been formal loans. We estimated the opportunity cost of these funds had they been invested in my standard portfolio. The final document was staggering. Over $320,000 in direct payments. Nearly 80. 000 INEST I'm ATEDLOSTINVESTMENT RETURNS. OVER *operator 80. 000 in estimated lost investment returns. Over operator 400. 000 total. I could have bought a vacation home, I whispered, staring at the number. I could have funded an entire charitable foundation. You still can, Chloe reminded me. Once you stop the bleeding. We set up email notifications for when the cancellations would be processed. I knew the fallout would be swift and severe. My family would not take this financial cutoff lightly. Are you ready for their reaction? Chloe asked as we finished our preparations. I hesitated. For a moment, the familiar guilt and obligation surfaced. Images flashed through my mind. My mother's tears, my father's anger, my siblings' accusations, the family bonds, however dysfunctional, that had defined my entire life. Then I remembered standing in that restaurant lobby, the security guard's grip on my elbow, my father's voice. Get this beggar out of here. Yes, I said, my resolve hardening. I'm ready. Monday morning arrived with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. I had made my decision, and now it was time to execute my plan with the same methodical precision I applied to my professional life. My first call was to Lame Misen. I asked for the event manager who had handled my parents' anniversary. Miss Morgan, how can I help you? She asked, her voice cautious. She clearly remembered the previous night's scene. I'd like to discuss the charges to my credit card from last night's event, I said calmly. Yes, the final bill came to $23,475, including the additional services requested on site. The charge will process today. I did not authorize those additional charges, I stated. I approved only the initial $18,000 deposit. Furthermore, I was refused entry to the event despite funding it. There was an uncomfortable pause. I see. This is unusual. What would you like us to do? I will not dispute the initial deposit, I said, but I want the additional charges canceled immediately, and I'd like the record to show that the remainder of the bill should go to Richard and Elizabeth Morgan directly. I understand, she said carefully. And the deposit? I had considered demanding it back, but something else occurred to me. Please redirect the deposit as a donation to Seattle Children's Hospital. I'd like the donation to be anonymous. Can you arrange that? She sounded surprised but pleased. Yes, we can definitely do that. I'll email you confirmation once it's processed. Next, I called the cruise line. The Alaska voyage was scheduled for June, a 7-day luxury trip I had booked for my parents' anniversary gift. I need to cancel a reservation, I told the customer service representative. Booking number AC789542, the Alaska Glaciers Deluxe Package for 2. This is a premium reservation with a strict cancellation policy. There will be a fee. That's fine, I replied. Please process the cancellation and refund the remaining amount to my original payment method. And should we notify the travelers of the cancellation? I considered this. No, that won't be necessary. I'll handle that personally. The Disney trip cancellation was next. This one was harder emotionally as I pictured my niece and nephew's disappointment. They were innocent in all this, but I couldn't separate them from their mother's behavior. Still, I made a mental note to perhaps send them gift cards directly for their birthdays. I need to cancel the Morgan family package at Disney World, May 15th to 20th, I told the Disney representative. Of course, the cancellation fee is 20% of the package price. That's acceptable, I said, feeling a strange detachment. For Eric's business loan, I contacted my bank and explained that I needed to freeze the funds in the business account I had set up. Since the account was in my name with Eric as an authorized user, I had the right to restrict access. The funds haven't been touched yet, the bank manager confirmed. We can freeze the account immediately. Please do, I said. And send me confirmation when it's done. The country club membership renewal was the easiest. A simple call to the membership office. I won't be renewing the Morgan family membership this year. Mr. and Mrs. Morgan have been members for 8 years, the membership director noted. They'll be disappointed. I'm sure they will, I replied, feeling nothing. By noon, all cancellations had been processed. The only thing left was to prepare for the inevitable backlash. I drafted a simple automatic reply for my family's numbers. Financial services permanently discontinued. All inquiries will be directed to this automated response. I scheduled it to activate at 5 p.m., giving the various organizations time to process the cancellations and potentially notify my family. Then I blocked their numbers temporarily, not permanently, as I wanted to see their reactions, but I needed a buffer to prepare myself. That evening, Jordan came over with takeout and wine to provide moral support. It's done, I told her as we sat on my balcony overlooking the Seattle skyline. Everything's canceled. How do you feel? She asked. I considered the question carefully. Lighter, I said. Like I've put down a burden I've been carrying for so long. I forgot what it felt like not to have it weighing me down. Any regrets? Not about the money, I said honestly. But I'm sad about what this reveals. That after all these years, all these sacrifices, they never really saw me as family, just as a resource. Jordan raised her glass. To your Independence Day. I clinked my glass against hers. To boundaries. We were halfway through dinner when my phone began to vibrate continuously. I had set it to silent but left it face up on the table. The screen lit up with notification after notification. Missed call from Mom. Missed call from Dad. Missed call from Heather. Text from Eric. What the hell is going on with the business account? Missed call from Mom. Voicemail from Dad. Text from Heather. The Disney reservation is showing as canceled. Fix this now. Missed call from Mom. Missed call from Mom. Email from Dad. Call immediately. Emergency. The notifications kept coming, increasing in frequency and urgency. Within 20 minutes, I had 36 missed calls. Wow, Jordan said, watching the phone vibrate itself almost off the table. That didn't take long. I felt strangely calm as I watched the digital meltdown unfold. They must have all found out at once. Are you going? To respond. I shook my head. Not tonight. They need to sit with this feeling for a while. The feeling of having something they were counting on suddenly pulled away without explanation. Jordan gave me a look of admiration. You're handling this like a boss. I am a boss, I replied, with the first genuine smile I'd felt in days. It's about time I remembered that. We finished dinner, and Jordan left around 9 p.m. I took a long bath, ignoring the continuing notifications from my phone. I slept deeply for the second night in a row, unburdened by the weight of impossible expectations. The pounding on my door started at 7 a.m. The aggressive knocking jolted me awake. For a moment, I was disoriented, but the angry voices in the hallway quickly reminded me of yesterday's events. Mackenzie, open this door right now. My father's voice, commanding as always. We know you're in there. My mother, shrill with indignation. I slipped on a robe and approached the door cautiously. Through the peephole, I could see my parents, Heather and Eric, all crowded in the hallway. Their faces were contorted with anger. My father's complexion was approaching dangerous levels of red. I took a deep breath and opened the door. What is the meaning of this? My father demanded, pushing past me into the apartment without waiting for an invitation. The others followed, creating a semicircle of fury in my living room. Good morning to you too, I said calmly, closing the door. I see you all got my messages. Messages? Heather shrieked. You canceled our Disney vacation without a word. Jackson and Emma have been looking forward to this for months. The cruise line called us, my mother added, her voice trembling with what I now recognized as manufactured emotion. They said our anniversary cruise was canceled. We'll be humiliated in front of our friends. We already announced it at the party. Eric stepped forward, his face twisted with self-righteous anger. You froze the business account. I have suppliers waiting for payment. You've destroyed my reputation. My father's voice cut through the cacophony. Fix this now. Whatever game you're playing stops immediately. They all stared at me expectantly, confident in their collective ability to bring me back in line. In the past, it would have worked. The guilt, the obligation, the desperate need for approval, It would have had me reaching for my phone to undo everything. But something had fundamentally changed inside me. No, I said simply. The single word landed like a bomb in the room. There was a moment of stunned silence before they all started talking at once again, voices rising in pitch and volume. "You're clearly having some kind of breakdown," my mother declared. "This is why you're always alone," Heather snapped. "You're unstable. I'll sue you," Eric threatened. "That money was promised to me." My father stepped close, using his height to try to intimidate me as he had when I was a child. "You will fix this mess right now or you're no longer part of this family." I laughed then. A genuine laugh that stopped their tirade in its tracks. Not part of the family? When was I ever part of the family? When you needed your mortgage paid. When Eric needed another failed business funded. When Heather wanted a fairy tale wedding. That's not family. That's exploitation. I walked to my desk and picked up the printed spreadsheet Chloe and I had prepared. In the past 10 years, I have given this family $327,845.38. That doesn't include the additional $62,000 in current commitments I just canceled. I handed the document to my father, whose hand took it automatically. Everything is itemized there. Every payment, every gift, every loan that was never repaid, plus the calculated interest and opportunity cost. They stared at the paper, momentarily silenced by this staggering figure. "We're your family," my mother finally said, as if that explained and excused everything. "Family doesn't have security remove me from an event I paid for," I replied evenly. "Family doesn't call me a beggar." My father's head snapped up. "You're being oversensitive." It was a misunderstanding. I walked to my phone and played the recording I'd made in my car after leaving the restaurant. My voice tearfully recounting exactly what had happened. Every word still fresh in my memory. Then, my father's voice, perfectly captured. "Get this beggar out of here." Heather at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. Eric studied his shoes. My mother's expression hardened. "You're taking things out of context," she insisted. Your father was upset. "You're right. I have been taking things out of context for years," I agreed. "I've been interpreting financial exploitation as love. I've been mistaking my usefulness for belonging. That stops now." "So what? You're just cutting us off," Eric demanded, "after everything we've done for you." I turned to him, genuinely curious. "What exactly have you done for me, Eric?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again, unable to cite a single example. "This is how it's going to be," I said, addressing all of them. "I will no longer provide financial support of any kind to any of you. No loans, no gifts, no payments. You are all adults with jobs, homes, and resources. Figure it out." "You'll change your mind," my father said dismissively. "You always do." "Not this time," I replied. "This time, I have something worth more than your approval, my self-respect." "You're being selfish," my mother accused. "After all we've sacrificed for you." "What sacrifices, Mom? Please enlighten me. When did any of you ever put me first? When did you ever show up for me when I needed emotional support, not just to collect a check?" The silence was damning. "You need help," Heather finally said. "Professional help." "On that, we agree," I replied. "I started therapy last week. My therapist has a term for what's been happening: financial abuse." "That's ridiculous." My father scoffed. "You're the one cutting off your family when we need you." "Need my money?" I corrected. "Not me. Never me." The conversation devolved from there. Threats were made. Tears were shed. My character, mental health, and moral fiber were all called into question. I remained calm, repeating my position clearly each time they tried to find a crack in my resolve. After nearly an hour of emotional battering, they finally realized I wasn't going to cave. "This isn't over," my father declared as they moved toward the door. "You'll regret this decision." "I already regret the past 10 years, I replied honestly. "But I won't regret today." As they filed out, my mother turned back with one final attempt. "What will people think when they hear how you've abandoned your family?" "I don't know, Mom," I said, meeting her gaze directly. "What did they think when they watched you have security escort me out of a party I paid for?" She had no answer for that. After they left, I leaned against the closed door, expecting to feel devastated. Instead, I felt strangely peaceful. The confrontation had been ugly but necessary. The threats and manipulation that had worked so effectively in the past now seemed transparent and pathetic. My phone pinged with a text. I braced myself for more family drama, but it was from my cousin Rebecca. I saw what they did to you at the party. It was cruel and wrong. I wanted to say something but was too cowardly. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you for finally standing up for yourself. It was the first genuine expression of support I'd received from any family member. I texted back a simple, thank you. That means a lot. Perhaps I wasn't completely alone in the extended family after all. It was a small comfort, but real. And reality, however painful, was better than the illusion I'd been living in for so long. 6 months passed like a dream. Fall arrived in Seattle, painting the city in rich oranges and reds. The crisp air felt like a metaphor for the clarity I'd found in my life. The immediate aftermath of the confrontation had been challenging. My family had tried various approaches to regain their financial foothold in my life. My father sent formal emails demanding repayment for all they had invested in raising me. My mother left tearful voicemails about medical issues that mysteriously resolved when I didn't respond. Eric claimed his business was failing because of me. Heather sent photos of her disappointed children captioned with guilt-inducing messages about their canceled Disney trip. I maintained my boundaries through it all, focusing instead on my own healing journey. Dr. Melissa Chin, my therapist, had been instrumental in that process. Our weekly sessions helped me unpack decades of emotional manipulation and recognize patterns I'd been blind to. Family systems like yours don't develop overnight, she explained during one particularly insightful session. Your role as the provider was established early and reinforced consistently. Breaking free requires not just setting boundaries, but maintaining them through the inevitable pushback. The pushback had indeed been fierce. Flying monkeys were deployed, distant relatives and family friends calling to tell me how devastated my parents were, how I needed to reconcile before it was too late. I politely but firmly ended these conversations, refusing to justify my decisions to people who had watched the exploitation for years without comment. My professional life flourished as I redirected energy previously consumed by family drama. I expanded my client base, hired 2 new advisors, and was featured in a financial magazine. New friendships blossomed, too. Through a support group for survivors of family financial abuse, I met Alana, Desiree, and Thomas, who understood my experience in ways even Jordan couldn't. Our monthly dinners became a safe space for sharing victories and setbacks in our parallel journeys. As October arrived, I faced my first holiday season with my new boundaries intact. Thanksgiving had always been a fraught occasion in the Morgan family, elaborate celebrations that I was expected to fund, but never fully welcomed into. This year would be different. I'm hosting Friendsgiving, I announced to Jordan over coffee one morning. Will you come? Try and stop me, she grinned. Who else are you inviting? The support group crew, some colleagues, Chloe and her husband. And actually, my cousin Rebecca reached out again. After her initial text of support, Rebecca and I had cautiously reconnected. She shared that my parents had spent years controlling the family narrative about me, painting me as cold, work-obsessed, and uninterested in family bonds. My public disinheritance, as they characterized it, had created fissures in the extended family, with some questioning the established narrative for the first time. Rebecca said she and her husband want to come, I continued. And possibly my Aunt Catherine. Your mom's sister? Jordan raised an eyebrow. Brave woman. Apparently, she and Mom aren't speaking anymore. Catherine called her out about what happened at the anniversary party. The Friendsgiving dinner was a revelation. 16 people gathered in my apartment, none demanding anything from me except conversation and connection. Rebecca brought a homemade pumpkin pie and a decade of family gossip I'd been excluded from. Aunt Catherine arrived with an envelope. I should have given you this years ago, she said privately as guests mingled around us. Your grandmother asked me to pass it along after she died, but your mother convinced me to wait until you were more stable. She made air quotes around the last words, her disgust with the manipulation evident. Inside was a letter and a bank statement. I read the letter with growing amazement. My dearest Mackenzie, my grandmother had written, "You have always been special to me, your intelligence, your kindness, your resilience. I see how your parents failed to appreciate these qualities, too blinded by their own needs to recognize your worth. I am leaving you this separate inheritance directly. Your mother doesn't know about it. Use it to build the life you deserve, not the ones they demand from you. I was waiting for you to stand up for yourself. When you do, Catherine will give you this letter. I have faith that day will come. All my love, Grandma Eleanor." The bank statement showed a trust in my name worth $175,000. It had been accumulating interest for 7 years since her death. She knew, I whispered to Catherine. She saw what was happening. "Eleanor was nobody's fool," Catherine replied. "She saw everything clearly, including your strength. She knew you'd break free eventually." News about my family trickled in through Rebecca and other channels. Without my financial support, certain realities had come crashing down. My parents had been forced to downsize from their large home to a condo. Eric's latest business venture had failed spectacularly without my emergency infusions of cash. Heather and her husband had canceled their kitchen renovation plans. There were consequences for me, too. I was officially disowned. My name allegedly removed from their wills, not that there would be much to inherit. I was no longer mentioned at family gatherings. According to Rebecca, my mother had removed all photos of me from their home. Strangely, these developments caused me less pain than I had anticipated. The family I had desperately tried to buy my way into had never really existed. The love I had sought had always been conditional, based on what I could provide rather than who I was. In December, I received an unexpected message from my father. Unlike the angry demands of previous communications, this one was brief and subdued. "Your mother and I are having coffee at Westlake Center tomorrow at 2. If you're available, we'd like to talk." I discussed it with Dr. Chin in our session that afternoon. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "Part of me is curious," I admitted. "Another part is afraid they'll try to pull me back in somehow." "Those are both valid feelings. What boundaries would you need to make this meeting feel safe?" I considered this carefully. Public place, limited time, no financial discussions. "Those sound like healthy boundaries," she nodded. "Remember, you can leave at any time if they're not respected." I agreed to the meeting with clear parameters. 30 minutes, no discussion of money, public location only. My parents looked older when I saw them. My father's confident posture diminished. My mother's designer clothes replaced by more modest attire. For a moment, I felt the old pull of guilt and responsibility. But I breathed through it, as Dr. Chin had taught me. "Thank you for coming," my father said, uncharacteristically subdued. The conversation that followed was stilted and superficial. Weather, current events, careful avoidance of anything meaningful. Finally, as our agreed-upon time neared its end, my mother reached across the table. "We miss you, Mackenzie." I met her eyes directly. "Do you miss me, or what I provided?" She withdrew her hand. My father cleared his throat. "We've had to make some adjustments," he acknowledged. "It's been challenging." "I imagine it has," I said neutrally. "Your sister's children ask about you," my mother added. "Especially at Christmas." I thought about Jackson and Emma, innocent in the adult drama. "They can call me anytime. They're welcome in my home." Without their parents, my mother's tone sharpened. "My boundaries haven't changed," I replied calmly. "I'm open to rebuilding relationships, but not financial relationships." They exchanged glances, a familiar silent communication that had always excluded me. My father sighed. "We should go," he said to my mother. To me, "Think about what family really means, Mackenzie." I smiled slightly. "I have. Every day for the past 6 months." As they walked away, I realized something profound. Their power over me was gone. Not just financially, but emotionally. Their approval, so desperately sought for decades, no longer determined my worth. That evening, I hosted a holiday party in my apartment. Friends, colleagues, my growing circle of chosen family gathered to celebrate. Chloe brought her new baby. Jordan announced her engagement. Thomas from the support group shared that he'd finally sold his novel. As I looked around at these people who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide, I felt my grandmother's presence. She had seen this day coming. She had believed in my strength when I couldn't see it myself. The inheritance she'd left me remained largely untouched. I had established a small foundation with a portion of it, providing educational grants to young people estranged from family support systems. The rest waited for a purpose worthy of her faith in me. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Proud of you for today. Boundaries intact. Eleanor would be beaming. I smiled and rejoined my guests. The apartment was warm with conversation and laughter, decorated with lights that reflected in the windows overlooking the Seattle skyline. This was what real family felt like. Chosen, reciprocal, unconditional. The journey hadn't been easy. There would be more challenges ahead, more boundary tests, more moments of doubt. But I had found something more valuable than approval, more enduring than the false security of dysfunctional bonds. I had found myself. So, tell me, have you ever found yourself in a similar situation? Where you had to draw a line in the sand with family or friends who only saw you as a cash machine, not a person? I really want to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this journey of breaking free from financial abuse resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe for more stories of reclaiming your power, and share this with anyone who needs to hear that their worth isn't measured by what they provide, but by who they are. Thank you for listening, for being here, and for being part of my story.